It's the early hours of New Year's Day and a white pickup truck is stuck in traffic. The streets are busy with revelers in the French Quarter, the most famous tourist destination in New Orleans. The truck passes a police car and it suddenly turns right, ploughing into people. In this security camera video, you can see how fast it's going and how escaping its path is just a matter of split-second timing or luck.
A truck hits the corner and comes barreling through people, throwing people like a movie scene, like real life, throwing people into the air, they falling under the car, all that.
You just heard this squeal and like the rev of an engine and then this huge loud impact and then the people screaming. And debris, just metal, the sound of crunching metal and bodies.
At about 3:15 a.m, the driver's pickup truck drove down Canal Street and then right into Bourbon Street. A police car was stationed there to block other vehicles as the usual security barriers were being replaced. But the driver mounted the pavement to get past. He then accelerated, the FBI said, with the aim of running over as many people as possible. The driver then crashed the vehicle and was killed in a shootout with police. 2 improvised bombs were found in beer coolers nearby. Police said the truck was rented and carrying weapons and explosives. An Islamic State flag was attached to the back.
The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill.
2 police officers were injured in the subsequent shootout with the driver, who was wearing army camouflage and body armor.
I got at least maybe 12 to 15 people hit by this vehicle.
Bourbon Street was strewn with the dead and injured. This attack possibly imitating previous ones in Europe, including one on a German market 2 weeks ago. Investigators say the driver also planted the nail bombs and that he was acting alone. He's been named as Shamsuddin Jabbar, aged 42, from Texas. He served in Afghanistan with the US Army. And in 2020 he became an estate agent, here confidently promoting himself online.
I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist and IT specialist, where I learned the meaning of great service and what it means to be responsive and take everything seriously, dotting I's and crossing T's to make sure that things go off without a hitch.
Police have been searching Jabbar's home here in Houston. Those who knew him said he had financial problems and had converted to Islam. He also posted videos online to explain his attack.
There were 5 videos posted on Jabbar's Facebook account, which are time-stamped beginning at 1:29 a.m. and the last at 3:02 a.m. In the first video, Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers, end quote. Additionally, he stated he had joined ISIS before this summer. He also provided a will and testament.
Even though the suspect was American-born, Donald Trump blamed immigration under Joe Biden. Radical Islamic terrorism and other forms of violent crime will become so bad in America that it will become hard to even imagine or believe, he wrote. That time has come, only worse than ever imagined. Among the dead was 18-year-old Nikira Dedeau, who had finished high school and was about to start a nursing degree. And Tiger Betch, aged 27, a former Ivy League football player. His last text message to his family was to wish them a happy new year. The FBI is also investigating this explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas later that morning. This Tesla truck was packed with gas canisters and fireworks. The off-duty Special Forces sergeant who was driving it was killed in the blast, though investigators say that as yet there is no definitive link with the New Orleans attack. Yesterday's atrocity begs worrying questions about individuals still being radicalized by Islamic State ideology and about the possible targeting of more tourist locations by copycat terrorists.
Well, joining us now from Pittsburgh is Colin Clark, who's a counter-terrorism expert and director of research at security consulting firm, the Soufan Group. Colin Clark, how sophisticated do you think this attack was, and could it have been prevented?
Thanks for having me. Well, fairly sophisticated in the sense that there was multiple redundancies built in. The attacker obviously used a vehicle to ram through people and kill them, but he also had a firearm and he also had improvised explosive devices. So multiple kind of fallbacks to increase lethality, to increase carnage. In terms of could this attack have been prevented, it's now been well documented that some of the steel bollards that should have been in the area were not because they were being repaired. But it's really impossible to harden every single soft target that we have for large gatherings. If someone's determined to run people over, they're likely going to succeed.
Well, and it bears some similarities in that respect with the attack on the Christmas market in Germany. Does there need to be further investigation about this kind of lone act of terrorism using the vehicle as a weapon?
I don't know what further investigation there could be. This is a tried and true method that the Islamic State has relied on for many, many years. We can go back to Nice in France on Bastille Day, the Berlin Christmas market attack, attacks with vehicles in Stockholm, in New York City, in Barcelona, in London. So again, this is a low-tech, opportunistic type attack. We can't simply harden every soft target there is. We have to look at this comprehensively and also focus on the ideology and the radicalization process.
Well, and you mentioned that it was an Islamic State sort of tactic. He was inspired by IS, the FBI says, not as far as we know directed by them. But do you fear that IS is undergoing something of a renaissance?
I do, and I've been writing and speaking about this to anyone that will listen. In the counterterrorism community, we understand that the Islamic State has never actually gone away. And so the threat kind of remains steady state. It ebbs and flows over time, but I think given recent geopolitical events, particularly the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, that's going to open up more space for IS to resurge, and they're likely going to use this attack as well as what we saw in Somalia just recently and other attacks around the world to seize the momentum and to push its followers and supporters to conduct even more attacks in its name.
And Donald Trump lambasted law enforcement after this attack. How do you think he'll deal with the kind of terrorist threat that you've just outlined?
Well, once he's actually in office, he's going to have to stick to data and evidence, not just making things up and posting them on social media. And I think he's going to have to rely on, his advisors, his counterterrorism specialists. To be fair to Trump, when he was president, he did a pretty good job in taking the fight to ISIS overseas and kind of putting that campaign together. But now this is a different situation. We're talking about homegrown violent extremism, radicalization. Again, putting things on Truth Social or tweeting them out is completely different than actually putting together a coherent counterterrorism strategy.
And briefly, do you think the timing is significant with a kind of political vacuum in the US before Trump returns to the White House?
Yeah, I do. I think, Biden is one of the lamest lame ducks we've had in office for quite some time. So I'm not only concerned about domestically what could happen in the United States, but I'm concerned about what may happen abroad in the Middle East and elsewhere as our adversaries try to take advantage of that power vacuum.
Colin Clark, thank you very much for joining us.